Welcome to Unity White Rock. As we begin our meditation, I invite you to gently relax into your chair, on whatever you're sitting on. And as you lean back and start to relax, let that begin to help you unwind. Whatever thoughts, whatever busyness, whatever emotions have been coming up for you in the last hour, let them gently drop to the side and take a breath. And as you take a breath, begin to feel the cool and then warming air. Just begin to fill your body. Relax a little bit more. And when you're ready, take another breath. And begin to feel yourself unwind. Notice any tension in your head, or your eyes, or your cheeks, or jaw. And notice them beginning to relax. Take another breath, very gently, no force here. And feel any tension in your neck or shoulders. Just beginning to relax and unwind. Feel the energy dropping down through your upper body, your arms. Relax into your chair one more time. Feel the energy dropping down through your waist, your belly, into the seat, down through your legs. Notice any sounds that you may hear in the room around you. And with each one, just let yourself drop down one more time into your body, into your breath, the feelings in your legs, your shins and calves and your feet. And feel your feet connecting to the floor underneath you. And as you turn within, eyes open, partially closed or fully closed, closed. Notice a gentle smile come up from within. Begin to feel yourself larger than just your physical presence. Somehow the boundary between you and the room, you and your feelings, you and your breath, that boundary begins to dissolve. Be more present to the deeper feelings and thoughts inside of you. And as you take another breath, allowing yourself to go even more deeply, more gently into the stillness and the silence that's naturally within and inside of you. And this is where we meet Spirit, where we meet God, where we meet the deeper place and self inside of you. Invite that in if you're willing to. Holy Spirit, Creator, help me. Help me to find the peace I seek. the rest I need. Help me to feel your love, so that I may bring that into my world. That I can be the presence of love and peace, healing to each person that I meet. Because our world and my life right now are calling out for that healing and that presence of love. Now, as you take another gentle breath, I invite you to just be still and be silent and listen to the silence for a few minutes. Now I'm going to just very, very gently invite you back. Notice the sensations in your hands or your feet. Feel your seat on the chair, couch, wherever you're seated. Feel yourself returning to your present room or place, wherever you are, and notice your breath. Feel your eyes begin to flicker and let the light in. As I count you up from 1 to 5, just feel yourself rising back into present awareness and connection with my voice and your room. 1, 2, feel yourself breathing and relaxing into your chair and opening up. 3, 4, perhaps notice gentle grin or smile come up inside. And 5. Feel yourself fully back in the room and beginning to be aware so that you're able to step in to the talk I'm about to give. Welcome back. So, let me gently transition from this peace be still picture to a very different one. I just want to give you a little awareness. And this stormy scene kind of represents for many of us what we're experiencing in life right now. So if it stirs anything, take a gentle breath. If you need to, put your hand on your heart, just ground yourself. Bring yourself back in to this talk. So my talk for today is, how can we be spiritually practical in these challenging times? And those two seem to be oxymorons sometime, that the spirit takes us inside and the practical takes us outside. What I'd like to do is blend those two and really bring them together so we can live more fully whole and integrated during these times. In Unity movement around the world, May's theme is curiosity. So on that theme, I'd like to begin with a few questions. Here's the first one. Has anything in your life changed over the last 6 or 8 weeks? Now that one may give you a chuckle or may it take you as a start, because for most of us, so much has changed over this time. So let's explore a little bit about what that is. What's changed in your life? Begin to reflect on the last 6 to 8 weeks. Are you finding, for example, shopping a little bit more challenging? We can't just go where we want to and go in when we want to. We have to stand up in lineups sometimes longer than we want. We have to find different times to shop. Even that has been a challenge in our life. Here's a picture of well-known Will Smith in an upcoming blockbuster movie that I hope you'll watch sometime this summer. It's called I Am Going to Costco. Crazy times we're in, right? How about, are you shopping differently? Well, you know, traditionally we go to the perhaps big box or larger retailers for groceries. Now we're having to go to some of the smaller places to find items that we really need on a moment's notice. Kind of like this couple being invited to buy from a different source. How are you shopping differently? What's it bringing into your life? Ladies, particular question for you. How are you using all that extra time in your hands while you're staying at home? Are you perhaps getting ahead on some things like crocheting? Now that's a toilet seat to put all others to shame. How are you using this time? And gentlemen, are you perhaps exercising differently? Are you maybe part of a walking group that's not meeting? Well, here's a walking group of some famous folks who are also practicing social distancing. A little tip for how you can still live your life, but do it in a different way. Are you using this time perhaps to get ahead on things like your Christmas shopping? How many of you like to do things in advance? Well, here's one way of doing it. This one is called the toilet paper bouquet. This is an actual bouquet created by an actual company, Blossom Events and Florists in Truman, Arkansas. Quite an innovative thing, and they were selling, well, I shouldn't say like hotcakes, perhaps they were selling like toilet paper when I read this particular one online. What about another way of getting ahead on your Christmas shopping? Think of that woman in your life who you really want to buy something special for, and notice the perfect thing online to, at this Christmas, commemorate and represent all that we've experienced during 2020. Perhaps these earrings would be your choice. They're only $58 on Etsy.com. I didn't make them, so it's not a plug for my own product. Remember, though, with both these last gifts, to ask the retailer, is there a choice between regular thickness, plush velour soft, and recycled paper? A little humor to start us off today. But now, take a breath and let's go a little bit deeper. How are you really doing? How are you really feeling right now? Has your last 6 weeks been a restful, restorative, even connecting time for you in different ways? Kind of like this poem written by a woman by the name of Katie O'Meara. She wrote, "And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games." Has that been the tenor of your last month or two? It's kind of a sweet idea, and for those people who have experienced that, who've written to me, they are full and really exuberant about what this time has been able to provide for them. But perhaps your last 6 weeks hasn't been that way. Mine certainly hasn't. Perhaps it's been a hyperactive time because you've been a frontline worker, or you've been caught up in other activities of taking care of family or friends. Maybe it's been a time of heightened anxiety or fear as you watch news networks, see what's happening around the world or in your local area. Maybe it's been even a time of numbness as you've tuned in to the deaths around the world, or even in your own circle of friends or family. And therefore, perhaps it's been a time of sadness or loss as well. Whatever it's been, I invite you to just take a breath and relax, if you can, to just let it all in. It has been an upside down world. And to cope with it, we've gone through many things. Staying with that idea of curiosity, let's take it a step deeper with those questions. Are you facing some challenges in your life right now? At a deeper level, a stronger level. They may be financial. In relationship, we've been forced to be with people full-time that we've perhaps only had experience of being together with part-time, and that will tend to raise some challenges. Have you had physical health problems that have been expanded or exacerbated by this time? Or perhaps mental and emotional issues that are hard to get hold of because they just keep coming up. It's only natural. If you're feeling them right now, just again, breathe. Put your hand on your heart if you need to, and just give yourself a little compassion. It's been a difficult time for many. And finally, if you were to reflect, what are you needing right now to help you get through this? Just take a moment with that. What ideas or help or answers are coming up for you right now, if anything? Let that door open, because they're the stepping stone to helping you get through this. At least that's my experience. The fact is, we are all being stretched and pushed to change right now. And that can be painful because a part of us finds it difficult to change. Part of us doesn't want to. I just don't want to have to deal with all this. Stay inside, lock down, whatever your situation is. I don't want this. That's a reality. I understand. I want to get back to work. I want to get back to normalcy. Or maybe we just don't know how to change in a way that can allow us to be where we are right now, but with the peace and acceptance that we need to get through it. This year's theme in Unity for the entire year is what's called seeing life through a spiritual lens. And that's kind of a strange idea for some. It may be familiar to others, but let's go to that place. How might we use that idea of seeing things through a spiritual lens in a different way that might help us to both feel better and cope more easily and effectively in these difficult times, for however long they last, an hour, a week, a day, a month, however long it's going to be. For me, the spiritual path, and this is very, very personal over 40 years, has been incorporating two fundamental elements. The first is accepting what's true in our lives, or my life right now, whatever it is, and calling on a larger wisdom or love or peace or presence within me, whatever you call it, to help us to heal and transform what's active in our lives right now. So where do we begin with that? Well, here's what comes to me. The first is by letting in what we're experiencing right now, this day, this week. The joys that you may be experiencing of connecting or being peaceful or spending more time with loved ones, as I have been with my mother, who's 88, lives locally, and I can enjoy that. But also accepting the pains that we're going through. The loss and grief of normal routines, of friends, of family, people around the world. The challenges we're very practically experiencing right now, and the fears that those raise inside of us. Now, you might sit back for a moment or start feeling resistance inside and saying, why would I want to go there? That's what I'm doing my level best to block out so I can cope. And I get that. And I do that lots. But here for me were 3 reasons that came up about why I've attempted to go in that direction myself. One of them is that these are simply our truths right now. And you know, in our heart of hearts, we sometimes wish we could have people to talk to who would really listen to what's going on in our lives. Well, it starts with us. If we can hear what's going on honestly in our lives, it somehow opens us up to accepting ourselves more. And it's also a good path to allowing in a larger truth in our life. Local truth, immediate truth helps us to open up to larger truths. At least that's my experience. So it reduces our natural resistance and denial of wanting to push those things away. And reducing its resistance, it allows us to grow acceptance, to let ourselves be real with ourselves, and to have compassion and love and gentleness and tears and anything else that comes up. When I go there, it helps me feel more whole. So I offer it to you if you want to go there. It also, looking at our truths right now and the challenges we're having, actually motivates us to find a better way. It's that part of us that says, I don't know how to cope right now. Help. And calls on larger resources that we're part of. I'll be going into that in a few moments. Each of these steps, in my experience, helps us open up the door to spirit. And as I say all that, I need to take another breath because I want to come back to right now so I can be with you. When we think of ourselves as human beings, we tend to focus on the physical. Now, we may not be able to see our own brains as we look at ourselves in the mirror, but we certainly see the physical part of ourselves. And spirit, this whole idea of spirit or God or divinity or universe can be a kind of fuzzy idea to have to wrap our heads around. So this is what came to me as a way of thinking about it. Think of yourself as your physical self, separate from every other thing in the universe, separate from the microbes, the plants, the animal, the people, the cities, the stars. As physical beings, we are separate from everything else. And we use that brain as much as we possibly can to try to figure out the best way to cope in life, right? We do our best. We're always doing our best. But what if we didn't see ourselves just as our physical selves, but understood that beyond the mind and the physical self is an energetic self, and a self in what's called consciousness or thought or mind, and that in that mind we are connected to all of life, to the universal, to the divine. If that's true about ourselves, we have way more inside us and around us that we can draw on to cope and to heal and to find peace and connection in our worlds. And that's really what Unity Spiritual Centers or Church are all about and have been for over 140 years. Not trying to sell you on Unity, by the way, but that's the concept behind it, is we're more than the physical, and we are intimately always connected to divine mind, to our larger self. So how do we let that larger self into our awareness and find out if it's practical or not? Whatever challenge you are experiencing right now, here's one way to approach it. Just begin to open up that door between the personal self and the larger self. See if you can imagine yourself, just for a moment, thinking of your challenges, and then asking inside for help. In biblical terms, it said, God isn't outside, God is stored within. Ask for help if you're willing to. I know it cracks open for some of us to have to ask anybody or anything for help. See if you're willing. And if you are, then the next step is, are you willing to receive it in whatever form it might come? The third step is to want it so much that when it comes to you, in whatever form it comes to you, that you'll follow it. It might be an intuitive idea or a feeling of an inner prompting. You might be looking at something on a television screen or a billboard somewhere, and you go, that's speaking to me right now. It might be something in what a loved one or a friend says, and you go, it feels like I need to listen to that and follow it. For me, those three steps are what cracked open my logical, rational, mathematic, and scientific mind to being willing to listen to a deeper wisdom, an intuitive voice, still small voice has been said. It had to crack me open, but those were three steps that helped. Here's another thing that you might do if you attend a Unity service, for example. This is something that we say or hear at the beginning of our services. And it's something that's been said in the Unity movement for many, many decades. There is only one power and one presence in the universe and in my life. God, the good, omnipotent. Now, some of you who know that phrase, it might start to take you deeper already, but for those of you who that's strange for, it's really, in our worldly view of things, it's not. There are many powers around, like this coronavirus, or the power of my employer, or my spouse, or children. This one is intended to shift our thinking to an ultimate place, to a universal truth that many of us have begun to connect with and open to. See if it fits for you. Something else we say in our services are these 4 lines. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. And those 4 statements were written by somebody by the name of James Dillett Freeman, who was writing for Silent Unity, our prayer service, during World War II, and they were trying to put out a message to people all around the world that would somehow give people something to hold on to in very difficult times of bombings, particularly in Europe. What we've done in our local services is added some words to those. I am that light of God. I am that love. I am, at a deeper level, that power. And I am that presence. And it's a way of trying to join the larger universal mind with the very personal mind and begin to identify, can I feel and experience those things inside of me so as to help me connect with that deeper presence inside when things get rocky. This is what a woman by the name of Myrtle Fillmore did when facing her own disease or illness condition about 140 years ago. Myrtle was the founder of, a co-founder of the Unity movement. And she, from childhood, had a very debilitating condition called tuberculosis. Maybe a name that's familiar or not, doesn't matter. But we forget that tuberculosis was an earlier pandemic. It was a bacterial pandemic as opposed to a viral one like coronavirus. But in its time, in fact, it was growing throughout the world for 200 years, from the 1600s to the 1800s when she had it. And during the 1800s, it was so serious that in Europe, of all the deaths in Europe at its peak, 25% of all deaths in Europe were because of tuberculosis. And in fact, even today around the world, over 1.5 million, over 1.5 million people still die of tuberculosis every year. So it's a very virulent disease, just like coronavirus. Well, Myrtle was searching very deeply for answers. What could help bring her out? She tried everything, and one day she heard a speaker say these words. He said, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. And he explained that the truth of God, or the universal or eternal, doesn't inherently have sickness. And therefore, if we are that, we don't have that as our truth. Well, for whatever reason, that idea gripped her mind in a positive way. And she began to work with it and pray on it and go to other teachers, go to the Bible, Mary Baker Eddy in Christian Science and others, try to understand and deepen that, because she knew somehow that it was true about her. And over time, practicing that and other self-care things of taking care and nurturing her body, mind, and spirit, she was healed fully of tuberculosis, and she lived to be an old woman. And that's very unusual, because of people who had active tuberculosis in those times, over 50% died of tuberculosis if it was active in their system and in the conditions in their bodies. She said later, as she reflected on her healing, she said these words. For her, it was a change of mind from the old carnal or worldly mind that believes very much in sickness and the power of sickness over us. A shift in mind to what's called the Christ mind, the universal mind, the mind that was created by the Creator. The Christ mind of life and permanent health. She felt it was that fundamental shift that helped her to heal totally of tuberculosis. For me, my understanding and what we use in the Unity movement is that spirit, or the power of divine mind, as it's sometimes called, is always there. It's always true and always present, and is in every part of the universe. and in our lives to help us transform our conditions, whatever those challenges are that you were thinking of earlier. But here's the but. There's always a but, right? The but in this case is we need to let it in, just as Myrtle did, and allow it to grow us, to help transform our thinking from our smaller worldly way of thinking of our own power, our own susceptibility to illness or challenges, to a larger wisdom inside that can help us transform them. But that isn't always as easy as it sounds, is it? Even for those of us who have been walking a spiritual path or a path of trying to understand life at a deeper level, it can be a challenge. Take an average Joe on the street or by the seashore like this one you see on your screen. When we are pushed and stretched to change, it can be really difficult to cope with. Teeth gritted, like, how am I was personally raised on maths and science, as I said earlier, and to shift to this way of thinking, the idea of God or spirit or something else was totally foreign to my thinking. It stretched me big time. And then it stretched me in other ways, to live it, to try to apply it, to talk about it even. This is not something that's naturally easy for me. But in that stretching, it's grown me. It's uncomfortable as well. And that's what the change is that we're going through right now. I'll just take myself as an example. When I started hearing about the coronavirus back in late February, early March, first I resisted it. And then it was like, well, it's not going to be that big, kind of like the flu. And I went through all the things that so many have dealt with. I started to get really scared or concerned as I saw deaths, the spread of the virus growing around the world. And then at some point, as I asked inside how I can contribute, I had the idea of putting out resources to people that might support them through these times. And so I felt like a deeper sense of purpose and gave me a great focus over the last 2 months. Really energized and alive and electric. And then at times I would overwork myself because I was so concerned about the spread that I would be in pain because I would overwork myself. It's been a roller coaster time for me. But each one has reminded me that what I want inside is to experience connection to the deeper sense of self and to God. Peace, so that my mind isn't going totally berserk and out of control. And connected so that I can actually live these beliefs in the world and offer them to others and in some way help in any way I can. Because it's both taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other that I believe is what gets us through times like this. And I think really that's what this pandemic is really about if seen through a spiritual lens. It's about looking and dealing with these issues, the joys, pains, grief, loss, fears, and seeing them as our spiritual growth edges, things that are provoking us and inviting us to open up to a larger way of working in the world that is enriching of ourselves and practical for living in the world and helping others. So I invite you for a few moments as we move towards the end here to think about your own SGEs, your spiritual growth edges. For those that have enriched you and continue to enrich you, perhaps connections with family or friends, or taking time to read those books and to Just relax from a very busy time. Enjoy and appreciate the good in your life, whatever it may be, because the opening up to that place is where we want to be in life, right? And if we miss the good times now, we're always looking for a future good. Be there now. Be here now. But it also means that we need to be open to the painful, to the loss, and grief, if that's coming up inside of you, or just the physical pains, if that's the way it's showing up inside of you. And to have deep compassion, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, for ourselves and for each other. Another step that may be helpful is to quiet your regular thoughts like we did in that meditation. And in those moments of quieting those regular thoughts, to listen to the larger or deeper you. It's a very real way of shifting from our normal busy mind into the deeper place inside. And the last one is to take care of yourself and others in practical ways. Guided as much as possible by that larger you, that intuition, that sense of compassion and caring for others. But make it practical, because that's what we need in these times. In order to help people do that, as I said earlier, I've spent the last couple of months creating a website to help us take care of ourselves and others and our fears and challenges in these times. And it's called simply Take Care of You. www in front, but a .info afterwards. takecareofyou.info. You'll find there resources to help you deal with grief or with relaxing or good news. There's humor. There's things that are inspiring that are going on around the world. It's to help you feel connected, but yet okay inside at the same time. And also ideas about how to help you help others. Shortly before giving this talk, a good friend sent me a poem, a prose poem by Khalil Gibran, which I wanted to share as the ending to my talk today. Here's what he wrote about fear. He said, "It is said that before entering the sea or the ocean, a river trembles with fear. In front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever." The same is often true in what's said about the human mind trying to grapple with the divine. And we're afraid of getting lost forever. In front of her, the river, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because that's where the river will know. It's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. So as you think about the very real river of your life with all its ripples and its edges, its feelings, as you think of that river of your life taking you towards that larger ocean, imagine for a moment that it's not a terrifying place, but a place that your heart most deeply longs for. That might help the movement towards that larger place in you. Breathe deeply. Imagine yourself being held by others as you move forward towards it. And whatever it may be, take your next step to coping, to caring, to healing, to stepping out into the world and using your voice, whatever it may be. Because you and all of us are greater than this virus. We are greater than that little tiny virus itself. We're greater than these lockdowns or these pressures. We're greater than the challenges of getting the economy and our businesses, our work life going again. We're greater than all of them. And we will, drawing on this deeper wisdom inside us and making it present in our and practical in our lives, we will overcome it. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and me today, and God bless.